Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to episode number 30 of the Kingsmen Sports Podcast. I am Matthew King, Jacob Sullivan hopping on as well. And it is time for our MLB season predictions. 2023 is, as of recording this, a week away exactly from opening day. The World Baseball Classic just finished up. We're going to talk about that on the next episode because we both I think really enjoyed that, as I believe most baseball fans did. It was incredible. If you don't like the World Baseball Classic, shut up, you're wrong. But it is time to look back on last year. And when we look back on last year, it was a dead tie with how many we did it. If you got it, nailed it, that was a separate kind of 2-pointer. And if you were one off, that was a 1 point. We tied 11 nailed, 16 one off, and then we only got one award, which was Julio Rodriguez Rookie of the Year. And our playoff predictions were just absolute garbage before the season started. So here we are, tied, and we're going to double dip on this year. So what are we doing? Winner gets 2 soapbox moments, I guess. 2 opportunities.
Sure. I mean, 1 or 2 doesn't really matter.
We'll do 2. We'll do 2. Okay. Let's double it up. There's still soapboxes coming. Sean's got one for just absolutely destroying us in NFL all season long, which is why he wasn't invited for the baseball preview. But we will go ahead and get into it.
Way too much about the Dodgers anyway, so.
Yeah, nobody wants to hear about the Dodgers anymore. It's a new era. And that's a great place to start, Jacob, because we're going to start with the NL West. So It's almost like you knew that was going to happen.
Something like that.
The NL West looks a lot different this year. There's kind of a shift in the hierarchy that kind of took place during last season's postseason when the Padres finally did knock off the Dodgers. There had been talk of that little brother, big brother, and there was really no arguing that the Dodgers had been the big brother, still kind of are until the Padres officially knocked them off. I think that's going to happen this year. I've got the Padres winning this division. Obviously, they went out and made a ton of moves, bringing in Xander Bogaerts. Juan Soto is a trade acquisition they made last season. They also kept Manny Machado, just signed him to a long-term extension. Matt Carpenter, a sneaky pickup for them as well. He can be a DH. Really had a good year with the Yankees until he suffered that foot injury. This rotation, though, is a little bit concerning. Yu Darvish and Blake Snell at the top, but then after that, the depth really falls off. Joe Musgrove doesn't seem like he's going to be ready for the beginning of the season, so Michael Wacha comes in. He'll be that number 3. Also, Nick Martinez and Seth Lugo going to be in there. Until Joe Musgrove gets back, this rotation is pretty thin. They can't afford another injury, and I want to compare them to the Dodgers real quick before I give you the floor, Jacob. Dodgers, they lost a lot from last season, and things just got worse with Gavin Lux being done for the season before it ever really gets going. Miguel Vargas is going to take a big step up. They're going to rely on him really hard. They also brought in JD Martinez, which is a solid move. The rotation looks strong, but not as strong as it has looked. Dustin May is going to be back. That's a big-time return for the Dodgers. But Noah Syndergaard's sitting in that 5 spot after Tyler Anderson and Andrew Heaney both left after kind of revitalizing their careers with the Dodgers. It just feels like the Dodgers are a little bit plagued before this one even really gets going. And I think this is the year Padres pass them, but I still think Dodgers are 2 and get a wild card.
And I've actually got it reversed from you. And it really comes down to the pitching. I trust Dodgers starting rotations so much more than the Padres because they've been there. They've been able to handle that. Dodgers' entire offseason seemed to focus around one guy, and it wasn't the guy that they wanted to focus around. And that's Trevor Bauer. Padres made some fantastic moves, either in the middle of last season or they had a fantastic offseason this year. And I think that they're taking strides. They are definitely going to make the playoffs. I trust who the Dodgers have throwing the ball a heck of a lot more than their little brother. Then I actually, for third place in that division, are going Diamondbacks. There are a lot of young, exciting guys on this Diamondbacks team, and I'm excited to see what they're able to do. Then I've got the Giants. They really swung and missed this offseason. They tried to hit a home run, and they popped out. It was a couple of really disheartening misses. You've got Judge, obviously. That hurts when that you're putting a lot of eggs in that basket. And then you had the hokey pokey that ended up being going back to Minnesota with Correa. So And then one of their biggest acquisitions that they got in Mitch, he's already kind of hurting a little bit. So I don't think it's going to be as good of a year for the Giants as they were expecting at the end of last year. And then at the bottom, I've got the Rockies. We've said it so often. No idea what they're trying to do. They're spending money, but they're not trying to win. And I don't understand it.
So I've got a lot of differences at the bottom. I guess we just have flipped third and fifth because in third, I've got the Giants. I think the Giants are really looking like a solid group. I think this lineup it's still there's still some missing pieces. You can tell. Mitch Haniger coming over again. You already mentioned he's beat up, but Michael Conforto also coming over. I really like that pickup for the Giants. He is a very solid hitter. Is he going to be that guy that you can really rely on in the 3 spot? We'll find out. Jock Peterson also hitting behind him. They've got some young talent. I love the Tyro Estrada, Brandon Crawford duo up the middle, but I like this rotation a lot. Logan Webb, Alex Cobb, Ross Stripling, Alex Wood, and Anthony Desclafani. I think that is a really good rotation. A lot of them have that. They're younger, don't have to worry about those injuries that come with age. So I really like what they have. And you also you're going to have Sean Manaea as well. This rotation could be very, very dangerous, but just the bottom half of the lineup isn't going to be enough to catch up to teams like the Padres and the Dodgers. I do think they compete for a wild card, just fall short. Fourth place is where I've got the D-backs. Again, I like this youth movement that they have. You're starting to see it pay off a little bit. These guys coming up. I've always liked Christian Walker, but you also have Ketel Marte, Corbin Carroll, really looked solid coming up late last season, got some at-bats in. Alec Thomas, I think, is a really, really good player. He's going to be hitting the 9-hole, kind of try and set the table for that top of the order. The rotation, though, is kind of the opposite from the Giants. They've got a lot of age. Zach Gallen and Merrill Kelly, I like that one too. But then Madison Bumgarner, Zach Davies, and just question marks for their number 5 starter so far. So I think that's what separates those two teams. And then, yeah, the Rockies I have bringing up the rear of this division. Again, just confused. They've got an exciting group of players. I mean, Chris Bryant, Ryan McCann, CJ Cron, those guys, they can hit bombs for sure. Chris Bryant's had injury issues already in his first year with Colorado, and the rest of that lineup is just very subpar. The rotation, Herman Marquez and Kyle Freeland both look solid, but after that, it's just a big jumbled up mess of whoever they could get. And we've talked about it multiple times, and you just mentioned it. Just confused with what the Colorado Rockies are trying to do. Are they trying to win now? Are they trying to rebuild? No one really knows, and I'm not so sure that they even know as of right now. All right, we're going to move now to the NL Central, where the team who won the title last year lost some very important players. Of course, Albert Pujols and Yadier Molina both stepping away from the game of baseball. I've still got them at the top of this division, though. I think top to bottom, their lineup is really solid. The reigning MVP and Paul Goldschmidt. Nolan Arenado was very close to maybe taking MVP from his teammate. Also, Wilson Contreras, I think, is a really good get at catcher. Obviously, you're not going to be able to replace Yadier Molina defensively, but I think Contreras has a better bat, and he is a very, very good defensive catcher still. So I don't think that's as big of a drop-off as some were expecting. Also, Lars Nootbaar just absolutely stole the show at the World Baseball Classic. I think he's due for a big season. I think the WBC is a little bit telling. We'll talk about another guy who probably was Mr. WBC this season when we get to the AL East. But I think the bottom of this order is very strong as well. Rotation a little bit shaky, but I trust Jack Flaherty. I think this is going to be a solid year from him. Adam Wainwright, probably going to be his last year as well. Jordan Montgomery. I think the pieces are there for this rotation to do enough to let this lineup just work. And I think Cardinals take this division pretty comfortably.
Yeah, I'm right there with you with Cardinals taking number 1. You said it. Best corner duo in the game. You've got Goldschmidt and Arenado manning those two corners. That's a solid start to your lineup. And then, like you said, they're missing pieces. They really replaced them as best they could with guys that they were losing this last year. So I see them, like you said, pretty comfortably in that division, leading it all year long.
Now we're going to get to where we have a surprise at number 2, because we agreed with this surprise. This is the team. This is my sleeper team this season. I went with the Phillies last year and kind of hopped off and hopped back. I had one foot out the door, I guess, on the Phillies the entire way, dragged it. I've got the Chicago Cubs finishing in second. They, I think, surprised a lot of people by some of the moves they were making this offseason. I already like Nico Horner, but getting Dansby Swanson as your starting shortstop, that was the big move, the eye-opening move for the Cubs, where it's like, oh, they're not just going to punt on this season. They're going to try and compete. And then you bring in guys like Cody Bellinger and Trey Mancini as well. Eric Hosmer also going to be there. This team's got some guys. Yan Gomes is going to step up behind the plate. Seiya Suzuki's going to miss some time, but they've got Ian Happ out there as well. This lineup is pretty talented. Rotation is a little bit shaky. Marcus Stroman, I'll talk about him in a little bit. But Jameson Taillon, I think, is going to have a consistent year as he always does. Kyle Hendricks will be back this season. I think this is a team that a lot of people are overlooking. This offense is going to be a lot of fun to watch play in Wrigley.
Yeah, I thought I was being bold. I thought I was going to throw you a curveball when I had the Cubs in second and stealing a wild card there. I know, but they got a lot of bats this offseason. They spent the money to develop that lineup, and I think it's going to be enough. Their pitching is competent enough that their lineup is going to be able to score more runs than their opponents and get those wins. I like it. Like I said, I still think Cardinals are going to be pretty comfortable. I think this is one of the weaker divisions in the game, but I still see the Cubs getting that wild card and being a surprise playoff contender.
Yeah, I don't think I mentioned I also have the Cubs getting wild card. I'm not sure if I mentioned that or not. Now let's move into the team we're going to have to defend ourselves for not having them at number 2. That's the Milwaukee Brewers, who we both have at 3. This lineup, again, it always looks decent on paper, but it never lives up to that. We haven't seen Christian Yelich really look like that superstar in a few years. Jesse Winker is going to be hitting 3 for them. Of course, as Mariner fans, we know, hey, he didn't have that good of a year last year, and he was kind of not that helpful behind the scenes either. William Contreras taking over behind the dish. Rowdy Tellez, I like that combo in the middle of the order. But there's just not a lot I really love about this lineup. I do like the rotation a lot. Corbin Burns and Brandon Woodruff is one of the best 1-2 duos in all of baseball. They've got 6 deep in the starting rotation with Peralta, Lauer, Hauser, and Miley. But man, this team would be a lot more scary if they had a lockdown closer in the back end of the bullpen that could protect these tight games, which they're going to be in a lot of low-scoring games from Milwaukee. I don't trust this bullpen nearly as much as I used to. That is a big reason why I have them dropping all the way down to number 3.
Yeah, Brewers are tricky because I feel like the players are in win now mode and the front office is not. And that is a very weird position to be in. You were mentioning, Corbin Burns, one of the best pitchers in the game, is not happy on that team. And that is going to affect how he plays this year. I'm sorry. Yes, he's going to be putting his heart into it. He's going to be trying to get paid for future years, but you do not have that dog in the fight when you mistreat your players like that. We've seen that happen with way too many teams with way too many good players. And then you mentioned that lineup that always seems to look good on paper. And don't get me wrong, Jesse Winker's going to have a better year this year than he did last year. I will put money on that. Can't get any worse. But they lost more than they gained this year. I mean, Colton Wong alone is going to be a big hole. It does not seem like that management wants to win this year. I don't understand it, whether it's getting rid of lights out closers or big pieces in your lineup. They're not there this year. I think they're going to suffer because of it. You're going to see good individual stats and not a lot of wins because the front office did not piece together what could bring them in wins.
I think the Brewers' window is officially closed, in my opinion, to try and win a World Series. Let's move into a team
that win a World Series, but let me tell you, to make the playoffs, their window is right there, and they're going to miss out on a couple of years because of what they did to their players.
Gonna have to stick the fingers in the window to try and keep it open is what the players are trying to do right now. Let's move to a team let's just do the bottom two teams together because I view these two teams very differently. Actually, in fourth place, I've got the Pirates. I like what the Pirates actually did this season. I think they've got a lot of young talent. Brian Hayes and O'Neal Cruz obviously steal the headlines. Rodolfo Castro is another one, but they brought in some veterans. Of course, Brian Reynolds is not happy. He's going to be gone. He will not be a Pirate at the end of the season. But the signing of Andrew McCutchen and Carlos Santana, as Mariners fans, we saw what he can do for a young ball club. These young guys are going to pick up a lot from these veterans. Andrew McCutchen's won an MVP. Carlos Santana just absolutely mashes, has been to the playoffs, been to the World Series. He's pretty much seen and done it all. They're going to be able to pick his brain a lot. And they also brought in a veteran pitcher in Rich Hill. So I think these young guys for the Pirates are going to start learning a lot more about what it is to be a big league player and learning how to do the little things to improve their game. So I like where the Pirates are headed a lot more than I like where the Reds are headed, who I have finishing last in the division by a significant amount and potentially getting that. It's the MLB draft lottery now, but I think they could finish with the worst record in all of baseball. I really like Jonathan India. I think he is a star in the making, kind of the only player on their squad I really do like. When you have Jake Fraley likely hitting in the middle of your order, that's not a good sign. I like Jake Fraley. He's not a power bat. The rotation, though, they do have a couple of good guys. Hunter Green, Nick Lodolo. I think that's a solid one, too. How long do they stay with Cincinnati? Only time will tell. They also have a solid bullpen with the younger Diaz brother. So I think the Reds have some talent, but man, they are so far and away from being even close to fourth place. I think the gap between them and the Pirates is pretty significant, although it might not look that way because of fewer games played in the division. But this team is more lost than the Rockies.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if they're more lost than the Rockies because you know that the management is not trying to win now. I'm right there with you. The Pirates, to me, are setting up the groundwork they're going to be, like we said about the Diamondbacks, where those young players are coming to fruition. The Pirates are laying that foundation so that their young players in 2-3 years are ready to take this team where they want them to go, and bringing in those veteran minds that know the game and can player coach these younger guys. We're going to see some fun games in Pittsburgh. And then you've got the Reds that, I mean, they've allowed other teams to cherry pick whoever they want and get nothing in return. The Mariners have been trying to get everyone from the Reds that we could that had a name. Like you mentioned, little Diaz and anyone with an arm. How long are they going to be on that team? And they're not even getting high prospects for these clearance sales. So yeah, they're spiraling, but at least the direction they're trying to head.
So we are in complete agreement in the NL Central: Cardinals, Cubs, Brewers, Pirates, Reds, with the Cubs picking up a wild card. Let's move to the NL East, which once again, probably from top to bottom, is the most exciting division to watch, at least in the National League. I'm going to start with the Atlanta Braves. I have them topping my division. I have them winning it all. I believe you do as well for Atlanta. Best lineup in this division, top to bottom. There's no easy out in the entire thing. Ronald Acuna Jr.'s completely back, all the way back. Matt Olson, he filled in for Freddie Freeman plenty well. Austin Riley came out of nowhere. He's an MVP candidate, feels like, every single season. Sean Murphy, I love that addition as their catcher, losing Contreras. They bring in Murphy. We've seen Murphy play in Oakland. He's a very solid catcher, especially with the bat. Michael Harris, second, as well as Ozzie Albies. This lineup's very talented, but the rotation is just disgusting. Max Fried, Spencer Strider, Kyle Wright, and Charlie Morton. That's the top four in their rotation. Oh my goodness, they're going to eat innings. They are going to probably lead the league in strikeouts as a rotation. They are that good. It's just hard to not dislike anything about the Atlanta Braves.
Yeah. What did we say about the Braves last year? That they lost too many pieces. They replaced them okay, but they were going to get off to a slow start because they weren't quite sure who they were as a team yet.
They lost their heart and Freddie Freeman, heart of the team.
Exactly. They picked that up middle of the year, and they did just fine figuring out who they were. They do not have that problem this year. They still have their core that they built around, and they had some solid additions, like you said. I love that lineup, but let me tell you, there are going to be 2 top 5 Cy Young contenders on the Braves this year. You can't count them out of any series, whether it's postseason ball, whether it's the beginning of the season. They look good, and they're going to show they know what they're doing.
All right, now we're going to lump in our number 2 and number 3 teams because we have them swapped here. In second place, I've got the Mets, which is a late change for me. There's no question Mets are trying to win now. I mean, they broke out multiple checkbooks to try and win this offseason. Top of the lineup still looks a lot the same. Brendan Nimmo, Starling Marte, Francisco Lindor, Pete Alonso, Jeff McNeil. You also got Vogie. He's going to be in there. Omar Narvaez is going to take over behind the dish for them. The rotation looks different, but still pretty scary. Obviously, Jacob deGrom leaves, but guess what? Justin Verlander comes in. Scherzer and Verlander, that top of the rotation is disgusting. Kodai Senga coming over as well. He's had a little bit of injury issues in the spring, but nothing extremely serious. Carlos Carrasco, there's a little bit of concern about his injuries, and Jose Quintana is going to miss some time as well. But man, David Peterson, Tyler McGill, those 2 guys have both gotten big league experience. They both are extremely talented. Big loss, though. Edwin Diaz out for the season, of course, in a freak injury in the World Baseball Classic. That's a big loss, but hey, if you can have a big lead, which I think the Mets could have, your closer's not necessarily going to see that many save opportunities. I don't think Edwin Diaz was going to have a monster year when it comes to saves because I think this team is winning by a healthy margin. So I like the Mets over the Phillies, who I have in third. Phillies made a big splash with Trey Turner this offseason, but Bryce Harper being out, that is a big concern. He's going to be out until summer at least. Nick Castellanos was hit or miss last season. I like that Kyle Schwarber no longer is hitting leadoff for the Phillies. He's going to be able to kind of see what the pitcher wants to do and hit with guys on base. This is one that just happened today. We don't know the severity of the injury as well. Rhys Hoskins, non-contact knee injury. Don't know exactly how long he's going to miss. Non-contact is always scary. So that is a big reason I dropped them from 2 to 3. In fact, it is the reason. And I still do like this rotation. Zach Wheeler and Aaron Nola, that 1-2 I like a lot. Taijuan Walker also adds something to this rotation as well, adds a little bit more depth. But that injury to Hoskins, and I like the depth of the Mets rotation a lot more than I do the Phillies. If the Phillies can stay healthy, they can sneak into that number 2. I don't trust this lineup enough, and I don't like the depth of the rotation as compared to the Mets. So I've got Mets 2, Phillies 3, with the Mets getting the last and a wild card.
Yeah, I made this list earlier in the week, and I just didn't want to change it. I like going with my gut, so I do have Phillies at 2, getting that last wild card. And I compare Phillies to the Braves, where at the beginning of the year last year, they weren't quite sure who they were. Coaching seemed to be an issue. Don't know all of the details there, but they must have figured it out, because I thought they were throwing in the towel, and they got pretty deep in the playoffs. Then you've got a lot of younger guys that I just trust more to be on the field more. That is the Mets' biggest issue. I rode them hard last year. I thought they were going to go all the way, and they just, injury after injury, they've got a lot of age on that rotation, in that lineup, where I don't know how much they can stay on the field when they just continuously have the same issues over and over again. Edwin Diaz was a big loss. Yes, the rest of their bullpen can fill in, especially if that lineup is getting runs across the plate. But I trust Phillies to have their elite guys on the field more and get more runs across the plate and more wins in that win column.
At the bottom of the NL East, in fourth, I've got the Marlins. You want a little bit of a sneak? You want to take a risk and put some money on a sneaky team? The Marlins, they could be that team. Luis Arraez coming over. You said that about them last year, and you said the rotation was going to be worse. They had a Cy Young. So I don't know. Jazz Chisholm is going to be on the field hopefully a lot more this season. He's transitioning to center field. He's a super athlete, so I think he'll be just fine. Jorge Soler, I think, is going to be protected by having Arise ahead of him and Chisholm behind him. They also brought in Gene Segura, veteran presence. He's had a pretty solid season last year as well. The bottom of the order leaves a little bit to be desired, but man, this rotation, I'm telling you, I still love it, Jacob. Sandy Alcantara, of course, there's no denying him anymore. It doesn't matter how much teams know about him. He's very, very good. I still like Jesus Luzardo a lot. Johnny Cueto adds a veteran component to this rotation as well, and I also like Trevor Rogers. That being said, I'm not putting any money on the Marlins, but I still think if you want to take a little bit of a shot, put the money on them. Don't put any money on the Washington Nationals. They know what they are. They're in a full-on rebuild. CJ Abrams is going to get a good run at the top of the order. Joey Meneses had a really good World Baseball Classic. I'd watch him a little bit closer. He was really fun to see. The rotation, though, Patrick Corbin, Josiah Gray. Oh, man, that is your 1-2. It's not good. It's not good. This is a really bad roster. They play hard, though. They have some young guys that at least are going to go out there and empty out the gas tank, but they're clearly the number 5 team in this division.
Yeah, I've got the last two in the exact same spots as you, obviously. Marlins, I do like their pitching, but they're still trying to have a fire sale with some of that pitching. They're not in win now mode. They know it. They're asking for too much right now. Come trade deadline of this year, when those contracts are going to be another half year closer to expiring, they are going to be moving some guys. And I do not think that team is going to look the same at the end of the year as it does at the beginning of the year, even though they have a lot of respectable names there. Nationals, they lost all hope for the next 5+ years as soon as Juan Soto left. They were really trying hard to have him as their core, and he wanted nothing to do with them, which I don't blame him. It seems like a common theme for national elite players. So you got to look in the mirror and say, what am I doing? It's comparable to Boston, where, okay, why are all of our big names leaving? We need to figure that out, or we're going to be in constant rebuild for decades.
So there's our National League. Again, my playoff teams, I have the Padres, Cardinals, Braves as division winners, and then Dodgers, Cubs, and Mets as wild cards. I think you had one wild card in each division as well, correct?
I did, but mine was Phillies instead of Mets, and Dodgers winning that division. So just similar, but not quite.
All right, so there's our National League predictions. We're going to take a quick break, catch our breaths a little bit, maybe get a drink of water or something. We'll come back, and we're going to talk about the American League. It's going to be a lot of fun coming up in this one, and we're going to start right with the AL West, where it hits close to home. That's coming up next year on the Kingsmen Sports Podcast.
Cool.
Spin Tees Screen Print and Graphics in Olympia gives you the very best printing and embroidery, perfect for teams, schools, companies, or special events. Get excellent quality, custom designs, quick turnaround, and low pricing. Count on Spin Tees for quality brands like Port Authority, Sport Tech, and District Threads. For easy ordering and results you'll love, go to spinteeprints.com or check them out on Facebook.
Good Health Nutrition Center in Centralia is your home base for nutrition. When you visit Good Health Nutrition Center, you'll find the largest selection of vitamins, supplements, and natural remedies. You may be surprised to also find a huge selection of healthy groceries such as gluten-free products, environmentally friendly products, organic fruits and vegetables, and items for specific diets like the diabetic diet. Good Health Nutrition Center, powering students and athletes from the inside out. Good Health Nutrition Center on Harrison in Centralia.
Welcome back to the Kingsmen Sports Podcast. I am Matt the King, Jacob Sullivan, with me as well, our MLB Predictions special. We just went through the National League. Now we're on to the American League, starting with the AL West, where you and I kind of flip-flopped our stances last year, where I was willing on the Mariners to win that division. I know you were willing them, but you still picked Houston. This year, I'm going to be the guy to pick Houston. I've got Houston 1, Mariners 2, with the Mariners getting a wild card. That's where we'll start. The Astros just lost Jose Altuve for a couple of months, a broken thumb in the WBC. But Michael Brantley's back this season. That's a guy a lot of people forgot about, and I really like Jose Abreu coming in. He was sneaky good, even though the White Sox had a really rough year. The catching position still gives me concern for Houston, but Jeremy Pena is a star in the making. doesn't matter what you think about Houston. He is electric. Yordan Alvarez is a scary, scary individual. The rotation lost their big name in Justin Verlander, but man, they are still as deep as they come. Framber Valdez, Christian Javier, Jose Urquidy, Luis Garcia, Hunter Brown, and that's without Lance McCullers for the beginning of the season. So they've got plenty of depth, and it just feels like until the Astros, or until someone finally takes that crown from the Astros, they're hard to bet against. It almost feels like the Dodgers, we haven't seen anyone take care of the Astros like we saw the Padres finally take over the Dodgers in the playoffs last season. And then I got the Mariners number 2. I think the gap is definitely closing between the Astros and the rest of the AL West. Colton Wong, a very good pickup. He'll probably hit at the top of the order, really good defensively, and that's without working with Perry Hill as of yet, which we've seen work wonders with Eugenio Suarez last season. Teoscar Hernandez is the big acquisition, though. He is going to absolutely mash. All he's being asked to really do is hit for power, drive in runs. There's going to be plenty of opportunities to drive in runs with Wong, Julio, and France hitting ahead of him. Just go out there, drive in runs. Eugenio Suarez, a really good year. Couldn't really ask for more after that trade. Cal Raleigh had his breakout year. Comes down to Jared Kelenic. It really, really does. I like that pickup of AJ Pollock. That is one of my favorite pickups that M's had this season. That's going to take a lot of pressure. Kelenic's probably going to face a majority of righties early in the season, while Pollock can worry about facing the lefties. And I think that's going to get Kelenic to kind of, when it comes to golf, you need to see the ball go in the hole. For Kelenic, he just needs to see some base hits get through, and that is going to give him all sorts of confidence. With the shift being gone, that could help him as well. And then I still love this rotation. Luis Castillo going to be the ace. Look for Robbie Ray to have a bounce-back year. It's every other year with him. If you look back at his baseball reference page, and he still wasn't horrible last season. I don't care what anyone says. He didn't live up to the contract, but he wasn't horrible. Logan Gilbert and George Kirby are both studs, and Marco and Chris Flex, and one of them's probably going to get traded, but I like that they're both going to be on the roster to begin the season just to protect them from those injuries. Mariners rotation did not miss a single start due to injury last season, so that was very fortunate. Hopefully, knock on wood, knock on anything you can find, that is the case again this year, but they do have that depth, and they have a disgusting bullpen. So the gap is closing. I just don't think the Mariners are quite there to catch Houston, but it's going to come down to the last week of the season.
I don't know if it's going to come down to the last week of the season or not. Astros are still a very scary team. I still see them getting more wins than anyone in the game right now. And I hate to say it, but until somebody slows them down, I'm going to keep saying it. That lineup is scarier this year than last year, and it was very scary last year. They lose. I'm going to use just the MLB show ratings. They lose an 82 guy and they pick up an 88 guy. It seems like everything goes their way every offseason. Jose Altuve being out does hurt. McCullers being out does hurt, but there is so much depth in this team. Honestly, their rotation is younger this year because Verlander's out. Yeah, Cy Young leaving the team, but they're scary. They are, and they will be until someone, like you said, puts them in their place. But the Mariners are scary this year too. I really like this lineup. Our biggest issue last year was the empty at bats. Every few innings, you had 4 straight outs. At the bottom of the lineup, you had a DH that was not a DH. It was, okay, who can we not put in the field today? And that doesn't work. That's a lot of empty out at bats that leads to runners in scoring position not crossing home. Mariners have struggled with that for the last few years. There is a lot more oomph in this lineup this year. Colton Wong, like you said, that is a great leadoff, as opposed to not really sure who we're going to put in leadoff. I guess Julio, because he's fast and gets on base a lot. No, have a dedicated leadoff guy that can get on base so that the guys like Julio and Eugenio and the bats of that lineup can actually bring someone around on a regular basis. And then Jared Kelenic. He's looking good this spring. He does not usually look good at the beginning of the year. Something has changed, mentality, mechanics. He looks like a different player. Everyone close to that team is saying it. And this is the guy that we traded Edwin Diaz for, other than to get rid of Robinson Cano's contract, of course. But that's beside the point. This guy's looking good. And if our outfield that is led by Julio Rodriguez can have positive wins above replacement and not have Jesse Winker and Kelnick / Trammell / whoever else we can get from our AAA team because we're hurting
Adam
people
Frazier
right now. Adam. Yeah, our second baseman being in the outfield. Yeah.
Yeah.
If we can have a competent outfield like we thought we were going to have at the beginning of last year, it's going to be a very good season to be a Mariner fan. And I didn't even touch on the pitching. That rotation can go against anyone in the bigs 5-6 games in a row. And everyone in the game knows how good our bullpen is.
Hopefully, I really hope Andres Munoz is just a closer this year instead of this non-closer.
Yes. I would really like some dedicated roles. Closer, designated hitter, leadoff. Yeah. Let's get back to basics and let people get comfortable in their positions.
I think the Mariners had 140-something different lineups last season. That's the most in the big leagues by a good amount. So we both have them at top two, both going to the playoffs. We actually both have another playoff team from the AL West. We have different playoff teams, though. In third place, I've got the Angels getting another wild card. This is the last year that they'll have Shohei Ohtani. I think everyone's kind of accepted this. Ohtani's going to be on the move after this season, and everyone is gearing up for that push. It'll be fascinating to watch this. You thought Judge was fascinating. Ohtani is going to be the greatest free agent chase we've ever seen. He's going to pass LeBron ever.
The Ohtani sweepstakes 5 years ago were insane. It's going to be even crazier now.
Double that. It is unbelievable what's going to happen. But that is going to be all about free agency because they're not trading him because they will make the playoffs. I think Ohtani's going to have a monster year. I mean, that's not saying much. I think Mike Trout stays healthy. That is saying a lot. I think that this is going to be the year where the Angels fans can at least say, all right, we got to watch these two guys play together in the playoffs. There's a lot to not like with the rest of this lineup, especially that bottom third. I still am a firm believer that Jared Walsh is going to be a really good baseball player. I really like him at first base. Taylor Ward, we saw glimpses of what he can be. Can he do it consistently? We'll find out. Hunter Renfroe is a consistent guy they slide in. A lot of this is going to come down to what Anthony Rendon can do. Can he stay healthy? Can he produce? We're going to find out.
Stay out of fights.
I think the rotation got a little bit better as well. Of course, Ohtani going to be the ace. Patrick Sandoval, he was solid for them last season. Tyler Anderson, was that a one-year fluke with the Dodgers? Because when he came over with the Mariners, he wasn't anything like he was last season. Reed Detmers is another guy I like that they had last season. A lot of lefties in this starting rotation, which is why I like them. Now I'm going to tell you what they have that the Rangers don't. Looking at the Rangers, I really think that the Rangers probably have more talent top to bottom than the Angels. I just think the Angels have this desire to get over the hump this season. I really think that as a fan base, this is the last hurrah with Shohei Ohtani. I think everyone is going to play balls out and do whatever they can to get to the playoffs. The Rangers made that big splash with Jacob deGrom. He's not playing the entire season. I'm going to spoil that. But even if he's not pitching this season, even if he does get hurt, their rotation's better than it was last season. Eovaldi coming over, also keeping Martin Perez, getting Andrew Heaney. This rotation is better, and the lineup was solid last year, although I still don't think their lineup quite compares to like the Astros and the Mariners and those top teams in the American League. It just feels like Jacob deGrom's going to go down. It's going to be deflating for the Rangers, and I still don't like this Rangers bullpen. I still think that it leaves a lot to be desired. I just think the motivation that the Angels have to get over this hump, get in the playoffs, get these fans at least some experience of seeing Mike Trout and Shohei Ohtani play in the playoffs. I think what we saw in the World Baseball Classic, these guys are going to be fired up to play this season. I think they just sneak ahead of the Rangers for that wild card.
Matt, I would agree with you if we lived in a Disney movie. This is not Angels in the outfield. There is not a happy ending. Shohei and Trout will not play in the playoffs together because the Angels will crumble like they always do. Look at what the Rangers brought to the table this year. What did you say about the Rangers all last year? Wow, those are some scary bats that pitching needs help. That coaching staff needs help. What did they do? They went and they got the best they could find. I think
got the best.
Yes. Yeah. I was putting coaching in the mix of that together. So that they got the best that they could find.
Right.
I can see Jacob deGrom having 12 starts and still being enough to get wins with that lineup. That bullpen is a little weak. I think they're going to be scoring enough runs with that lineup, with the bats that they have. I mean, look at that entire infield is on fire. They're going to be crossing home plate a lot. They're going to be scoring the runs. I don't think that the bullpen is going to come in to play as much as the Angels are. The Angels are in need of some elite names that are not Trout and Ohtani. Every single year, they're like, hey, we got it this time. We've solved all of our issues. Noah Syndergaard. Hey, this year we solved all of our issues. We spend 20, 30 million on this guy that does not help them cross that hump. It's going to be the same. The Angels are going to be the bad guys of the story and not make the playoffs. Rangers are going to sneak in and get that wild card.
I don't know if you can consider the Angels the bad guys. I know they are for Mariners fans.
We
don't like the Angels, obviously. I don't know if they're the bad guys.
They are.
When you have teams like the Astros and the Yankees still out there.
They're the California bad guys.
The bad guys got to win. And so far, the Angels haven't won. So that's why I don't have them as the bad guys. Let's now go to the team that is not the bad guys, that everyone kind of just feels sorry for, the Oakland A's. They're going to be coming in fifth, no question about it. This lineup sucks. It really does. I don't know any other way to put it. Shea Langeliers is going to hit cleanup for this team, allegedly. Jesus Aguilar, that's a guy they brought in. Not a hitter's-friendly park, and all he is really good for is hitting home runs. So his home run total will drop. The rotation I don't hate, honestly. I think that's the best part of this team. Shintaro Fujinami coming over. He's a Rookie of the Year candidate. He's going to get plenty of opportunities to make starts. James Caprillion, I think, is a really solid starter as well. Paul Blackburn is one as well. Just like the Reds, how long are they going to stay with this team? Probably not long. They're probably all going to get traded. Maybe by the end of this season. The A's, this is what they're going to be until they relocate. It's just time to accept it. They're going to be last place until they move. And even when they move, they'll probably be last place for a while because this team has just been torn apart so much. Trevor May, Kelso guy, he's with Oakland now. But, man, this team's really just in a bad spot. But I am excited to see this rotation. Some guys in this rotation are going to be fun to watch. I just don't see how they score any runs. They might score 0 runs all season, Jacob.
that would be a trick, wouldn't it? Name the top 3 Oakland A's from last year. None of them are on the team anymore. Some of them weren't on the team during the middle of the season of last year. And the only guy that was left, Sean Murphy, is now wearing other colors. So
even Stephen Vogt, who was the feel-good story, dipped to a division rival. He's coaching with the Mariners now. So, no one wants anything to do with Oakland.
Yeah, and for good reason. I mean, it's terrible. Like I said, Rockies, they surprise me and they spend money and they do this and they do that. A's, I swear, they just put enough talent on the field so that their guys can perform well enough to get trade stock. It makes no sense to me that they're just continuously, this guy's starting to do a little better. Let's trade him for someone that might do good in 3 years. If they weren't in my division, I would feel a lot worse about it. I wish that we played our division more this year.
I wish we just played Oakland all the time. There's be in a really good spot. So that wraps up the AL West. I've got Houston, Seattle, the Angels, Rangers, and A's with the Mariners and Angels both getting wild cards. You've got Houston, Seattle, Texas, Anaheim, Oakland with the Rangers and Mariners both getting
Anaheim,
wild
I
cards.
like it. Okay.
California, whatever. I'm
Yeah.
not gonna keep on the Angels. Yeah, whatever it is. Anyway, let's move to the AL Central, where I don't want to bring it up. You made a bold pick that just wasn't even close last year. We're gonna let that slide. I'm not even gonna say what it was, but man, it was bad. So
it was the Tigers.
I believe that you put in a little bit more research this year for the Central.
Yeah, that was my weakest division for sure, as far as what I knew about the teams, and I swing and a miss, just like the Tigers did a lot last year.
a lot for the Tigers. All right. At the top of the division, I have a new division champion. I have the Chicago White Sox. I know I picked them last year and it didn't work out. My big problem with the White Sox, our big problem, because we talked about it a lot on this podcast, was Tony La Russa.
The White Sox biggest problem with the White Sox was
he's gone. So is Jose Abreu, which is a pretty tough loss for this team. They do bring in Andrew Benintendi, who had a good season with both the Royals and Yankees last season. He's a really good bat-to-ball guy. Luis Robert Jr. and Eloy Jimenez need to take a step up. Yohan Moncada, I like what he does. Andrew Vaughn had a really good year. It is just going to be about how can we replace that thump of Jose Abreu. One thing they're not really going to have to worry about is this rotation, which is disgusting from top to bottom. Dylan Cease, Lucas Giolito, both Cy Young candidates. You talked about that with the Braves. Those two could both finish top 5 as well. Lance Lynn is an innings eater, that big Grizzly veteran. He is going to go out there and dominate. Mike Clevenger had some off-the-field issues, obviously well documented this offseason. No discipline, so he's going to be good to go for the entire season. He's a really, really good starter. Michael Kopech is filthy. You want to buy stock in a young starter, Michael Kopech is your guy. Look at him. He is going to have a breakout year. I love this rotation, and I think that you can't get any worse than what you had at manager. I think this team takes a step up, and I think they pass the Guardians and win this division.
See, and no disrespect to the White Sox, but I don't even have them in the top 2. I don't have them in a wild card. I like this division. I think this is going to be a fun division to watch. I cannot bet against the Guardians right now, whether it's arms throwing the ball, whether it's bats swinging at the ball. This is a fun group of young guys to watch. And they really, I was looking forward to watching them last year, and they exceeded all of my expectations and then some. I was rooting for them in the playoffs other than the Mariners. I wanted to see that team win, and they have the skill set to do so. I see them winning that division. I see them already knowing who they are and coming out really hot start and just building off that the entire year.
So I've got the Guardians number 2. I'm going to piggyback off what you said and just roll with that. Their big issue was they couldn't really hit for power last season. It was small ball. They fixed that. They brought in Mike Zunino and Josh Bell. Those guys, both big-time thumpers. The rotation, obviously always good. Shane Bieber at the top of the rotation. Tristan McKenzie looked just unbelievable last season. Big step up for him. Then you got Cal Quantrill, Aaron Savali, and Zach Plesac. Hopefully no more punching earth, as you put it last season so eloquently. No more punching earth. And then their bullpen is really, really strong as well. The problem is that they got to face some pretty good rotations in the American League. Fewer games against the AL Central, more games against the AL West and AL East. I think that is where they're going to see.
You could say the same about the White Sox.
But I like how the White Sox match up a lot more against those teams. I think the White Sox lineup is deeper than the Guardians. I think they are more talented than the Guardians. They can hit for power, and they can just flat out hit. I think that the lineup's better. I do give the edge in rotation to the Guardians and bullpen to the Guardians, but not by enough to overcome that. I still like Cleveland. I just think they're still missing that big-time superstar outside of Jose Ramirez to really help bolster it. I think you can avoid him. And Josh Bell floundered down the stretch last season when he got traded to San Diego, and we know the Mike Zunino experience. So I'm not so sure how much those two guys really do add when all is said and done.
Number 2, I actually have the Twins for a lot of similar reasons to the Guardians. They've got a lot of young, developing guys that are just fun to watch. Things did not go their way last year. There were times where it looked like they might go under 500. There were times where they looked like they were going to run away and steal a wild card. I think that there's less risk in the team that they've developed this year. And, if the guys who might go down, that always seem to go down for a little while, they have the depth that they can make it not affect them as much as other teams. Other teams, I'm not even going to say, I'm going to keep the Mariners out of my mouth so that it doesn't happen. But let's go with the Angels, because it always seems to happen, where their star center fielder seems to lose some playing time. The Twins star center fielder probably not going to play 150 games this year. When he goes down, they're prepared for it. They make the moves that they need to, where that's not hurting them as much as it does the Angels.
And I'll go ahead and say the name. Michael A. Taylor's going to be the guy that plays center field when Byron Buxton goes down. I've got the Twins in third. I like the moves that they made. Joey Gallo coming. I'm really rooting for Joey Gallo. Kind of sad to see how far he's dropped off. It looked like things might turn around with the Dodgers. They never really did. Somehow Carlos Correa is still a Twin after being both a Giant and a Met for a couple of hours, I guess, during the last offseason. But the bottom of the order gives me a lot of issues. Christian Vasquez hitting 9. Okay, he's solid, but when you got guys like Jose Miranda, Alex Kirilloff taking a lot of the at-bats, there's a lot of what feel like the easier outs in the Twins lineup. And even guys at the top of the lineup, Jorge Polanco, can he repeat what Luis Arraez did? No, because Luis Arraez had a really, really great year last year. Again, the rotation is better for the Twins this season. Sonny Gray, they brought in Pablo Lopez, Tyler Mahle comes over, Kenta Maeda and Joe Ryan. Can those two stay healthy? We're going to find out. I just trust those two teams, the Guardians and the White Sox, a lot more than the Twins, because it feels like something just always goes wrong for Minnesota. You talked about that with the Angels. Minnesota, you'd say the exact same thing, but they don't have the superstars to try and overcome it if everything goes right.
And that's actually why I have the White Sox at number 3, is because it seems like that team, if not everything goes right at the same time, they hover around 500 ball. And it seems like it's not that things are going wrong for them. It's that things don't go perfectly for them, that not every one of their pitchers steps it up and is a better, more complete player than they were the year before, or that their power hitter that they're investing in is getting 40 home runs, he's only getting 32. It seems like the team that they build, you're right, has a lot of star power to it, but they don't ever play up to the potential. And like you said, that might be managerial, that might be they're still figuring out who they are as a team, but until the smallest inconveniences don't shut them down, I'm not going to bet on the White Sox yet.
So now let's move into the bottom 2, which we have similar, but I want to talk about this Royals team, because if you are going to buy stock in a team that is clearly towards the bottom of the MLB, the Royals are the team I think you need to buy stock in. I really like everything that they have. I think this lineup might be set in place for what they have. Franmil Reyes, I hope that they go out and get a bigger slugger than him to try and fit into that middle of the order. But man, everything else really looks good lineup wise. Bobby Witt Jr. is going to be a star. MJ Melendez, Vinny Pasquantino. You want to find a guy that's just fun to watch play baseball? This guy is insane. Watch him play. He's awesome. I'm very passionate about him. Pasquatch, I believe, is his nickname, which is fantastic as well. So Vinny Pasquantino, a guy to watch out for. They've got so much speed in this lineup as well. It feels like everyone is a base stealing threat outside of Franmil Reyes and Salvador Perez, obviously. But everyone else can absolutely just go out there and steal bases. The rotation is where they probably need to improve on. Brady Singer is their ace, probably a number 3, number 4 starter on most other teams. Zach Greinke's back again, Jordan Lyles. They've got a little bit more depth, a little bit more experience, just not enough to overcome these teams in the AL Central that are clearly more talented rosters, more MLB-ready rosters. But, man, the Royals are so close, and I can't wait to watch them play here in a few years. They're bringing speedball back. And then I've got the Tigers at the bottom of the division. It's Miggy's last year. He's going to walk away after this season. They've got some guys who are supposed to be fun to watch. I do like Riley Green. I think he's going to be really fun to watch here as he grows into being a big leaguer. I still don't trust Javi Baez. I think that he gets overpaid every single contract. The rotation is kind of the opposite of the Royals, where I like that a lot more than I like these young offensive prospects. Eduardo Rodriguez is supposed to be the guy at the top of the rotation, but then you got Matthew Boyd going back to Detroit. Happy for him. We thank him for, the most emotional speech after the drought was ended. And then Michael Lorenzen, Spencer Turnbull, Matt Manning also there. They've got a lot of guys to like in this rotation. Just going to be tough to score runs.
Yeah, I'm looking at on my piece of paper, my notes paper here, I've got AL Central and NL Central, and it just seems so similar right now. Royals are a very comparable team to the Pirates, where they've got a lot of young guys that are going to be fun to watch in the next few years. And then they've got those guys like Salvador Perez that they're able to really teach the game to these youngsters. And I know it's going to pay dividends for them in the next few years. I'm excited to see where the Royals are going. Like you said, buy stock because it's going up. There's no question about it. But they're not there yet. It's pretty clear that they still have some missing pieces. They're not a complete team. Tigers have less pieces than the Royals are missing pieces. They're not going to lead that division in home runs. They're probably going to be in the bottom. We'll say that. Miggy is, that last great on the team. He is going to be retiring. And then they're going to look for somebody to sell tickets. And that's about it. That's all they have going for them this year.
And neither of us have a wild card in the Central. So my Central standings, White Sox, Guardians, Twins, Royals, Tigers. You've got Guardians, Twins, White Sox, Royals, Tigers, and just the division winners going to the postseason out of the AL Central.
Big difference in the top three and the bottom two in that team. Those top three, they were dancing around last year. Who was going to make the playoffs? There weren't going to be any wild cards there last year, but who was going to make the playoffs because they won that division? And it's going to be a battle this year too.
I will say the bottom two in that division are a lot better than, say, the bottom two in other divisions where we don't see anything in any light at the end of the tunnel at all. So let's move to the AL East, where I don't know if anyone really is in full rebuild mode anymore in the AL East. We'll start with the team we both have winning this division. That's the Toronto Blue Jays. I really like the changes that they made. Mm-hmm. Brandon Belt is a guy who knows how to win in the playoffs, knows how to win World Series. Dalton Varsho is a guy that they're really going to hope can continue what he laid down foundation-wise in Arizona. The rest of this lineup, pretty much the same. Kevin Kiermaier, really good defensively, another guy they brought in. Last year of Matt Chapman, so expect him. He's contract year. See if he can have a big year. Springer, Bichette, and Vlad Jr., though, are going to be their guys. Alejandro Kirk, all-star last season. Really, really great year. Ran into just a buzzsaw of a team in the Seattle Mariners in the wild card round. Unfortunate for them, unlucky, but I do think they improved the bullpen, which was very shaky last year. And we'll see. This rotation, again, looks solid on paper. Manoah and Gausman at the top. Barrios, if he can refine what he had in Minnesota, as well as Chris Bassett, I really like that addition. And you say Kikuchi, people are liking what he's showing so far in spring, so we got to wait and see if he can have like a year like he had that half season when he was an all-star with the Mariners. They're going to be just fine, and they're going to be World Series contenders regardless of that or not. I really like Toronto.
Yeah. You say for that half year, first half of the year to second half of the year, it was like he got snubbed for all-star and it took the baseball spirit out of him. It was terrible. And one thing that I didn't even realize was an issue for the Blue Jays at the start of last year with Charlie Montoyo. Firing him when the team wasn't doing that bad, I was shocked. And then I just start reading that none of the players were able to connect and grow under him. Having a full season under a coach that knows the team, younger coach can connect more. I'm very excited to see what the Blue Jays can do. I rode them hard last year. I had them win in the division. This year, I think it's going to be even closer. I know everyone seems to be all about the Yankees this year. No, we're all about the Blue Jays. Their weakest part last year where they were really struggling was pitching, and it seems like everyone is taking a step forward from last year already. So I'm really excited to see what they're able to do when they don't need 8 runs a game to win.
Now we move on to where we're a little bit different, but we both really debated on these next two. I've got the Tampa Bay Rays finishing second in this division and getting the final wild card in the American League. I talked about it on our predictions last year, where even when you want to write off the Rays, you just can't, because it feels like things are going to work out for them in the end. This rotation is very solid. Obviously, Tyler Glass now being out hurts them a little bit, but it's not that Tommy John that he was dealing with. He will be back this season. Randy Arozarena, can we talk about what this guy was doing in the World Baseball Classic for Mexico? My goodness, this guy knows how to play in the biggest situations. If he can stay on the field, that he's an MVP candidate every single year. This guy is unbelievable to watch. The rest of this lineup, okay, nothing to write home about. Obviously, Wander Franco is a stud as well. Yandy Diaz is a guy I talked about as being on the all underrated team. I like that, but it's the rotation for me. Shane McClanahan, Drew Rasmussen, Jeffrey Springs, underrated guy. Look at his baseball reference page, Jacob. Really, really good. Zach Eflin is a guy I like coming over from Philadelphia. Yanni Trinos is going to be that 5-starter, but again, when Glass now comes back, this rotation is going to be one of the best in baseball, 100%. I've got them ahead of the Yankees. Feels like a letdown year for the Yankees. It really does. It feels like we have these every couple of years. Aaron Judge, can he do what he did last year? Probably not. Last year was a special year. How much do Rizzo and Stanton and Judge stay on the field even this season? Josh Donaldson is still a guy they're relying on to produce. I just don't know if he has that anymore. And then they're missing some pieces at some key positions like shortstop. Oswald Peraza is supposed to be the guy they're going with. They don't really trust Isaiah Kiner-Falefa. Harrison Bader is going to miss some time. So they are already beat up, and that's not even talking about the rotation. I like Garrett Cole. I like Luis Severino if those two can stay on the field. But after that, they're already seeing injuries. Frankie Montas and Carlos Rodon are both going to miss the start of the season, which means Domingo Germán's going to have to be out there. Nestor Cortez is dealing with a little bit of a hammy issue. Those can really linger. So it's just, I don't trust the Yankees to hold up when it comes to the injury bug. But again, you could convince me very well that they finished second over the Rays. It is really, really close. But I'm going to give Tampa the benefit of the doubt.
See, and I'm going to give Yankees the benefit of the doubt just because the last few years, they don't get depleted by injuries quite as much. Now, there's a clear reason for me why they're not number one, and it is that glaring pitcher depth that always seems to bite them. And they know that it's there. They try to address it, and they can't. Spend all your money on Aaron Judge. It does have some drawbacks to it. I just, looking at the Rays, I love that team. Randy Arozarena. There are people down seeing this in Mexico. Mexico is in love. They want to put him on the 500 peso bill. They want him to be presidential.
I deserve it,
guys. He is a legend down here, and he will continue to be. And Tampa got a pretty decent Latin base down there in Florida. It's going to be a fun year to watch Randy. Rays cannot have as much bad luck this year as they did last year, right? It's impossible. Law of averages, they're not going to have 20 injuries to starters. It just can't happen. They are missing some pieces, not due to injuries. That's really scaring me. Let me tell you, as someone who went from Mike Zunino to lesser catchers defensively, that is a hole that is not easy to fill. And Christian Betancourt, sorry, had to look that up, is not there defensively like Mike Zunino. Mike Zunino is one of the best defensive catchers in the game, framing pitches, making sure runners are not cheating to second base. it's going to be a struggle defensively for them to overcome losing that, even though he wasn't on the field every single game. And then just their depth, they are going to deal with injuries. They always do. I don't know if it's the training staff. I don't know if it's just the guys that they have on their roster, but I trust the Yankees to be able to overcome that adversity that you're going to face to some degree in the season. And I have them missing the playoffs because of it. It was close. I was going back and forth, and I ended up giving the last wild card to the Rangers instead of the Rays. But it was very, very close. It's still going to be a good season for Tampa. I just don't think they're quite there anymore.
Bottom two teams in this division, we actually have flip-flops. I've got Red Sox, then Orioles, and I believe you have Orioles, then Red Sox.
Yep.
Boston went through some changes, obviously. Xander Bogaerts is gone, but Rafael Devers is still there. Justin Turner comes over. I like that as well. Matsutaka Yoshida, I hope I pronounced that name right. I very well could have messed it up. He's coming over. He's going to be a guy they're really going to rely on. Adam Duvall is a sneaky good get. He had a good year with Atlanta last year. Look at his numbers as well. They're not nearly as scary as they have been in years past, though. Bottom of the order really falls flat for me with Boston. The rotation doesn't look fantastic either. Corey Kluber and Chris Sale. Okay, yeah, they both won Cy Youngs, but they have both been beat up a lot of their careers. Nick Pivetta is going to have a lot of innings thrown on him, as well as Cutter Crawford. James Paxton, does he work his way into the rotation at all? Can he stay healthy? It's just a lot of injuries for this team. Baltimore, you very well could convince me that they finish above them. I wouldn't bat an eye if you told me that. I like this lineup. I like the young talent. Again, I talked about it on our all underrated team. Anthony Santander, I love him. He's not going to be an Oriole at the end of the season. Cedric Mullins needs to have a bounce back year as well. He didn't have a bad year, but he didn't have that year he had a couple of years ago in 2021. Adley Rutschman is their star piece. He is the golden child. He is their Julio Rodriguez, if you will, in Baltimore right now. Also, Gunnar Henderson is supposed to take a big step up, rookie of the year. They're hoping that he can fill that middle of the order as well. They bring in Adam Frazier. Can he have a bounce back year? Time will tell. The rotation, I don't like at all. At all. Kyle Gibson, it feels like any year is going to be his last. It just feels like he is headed in that trajectory where that ERA is going to skyrocket. Cole Irvin is another guy they brought over. What can he really do? They're still missing John Means. John Means is supposed to be the ace of this rotation, the future of this rotation. He's not there. So Dean Kramer, Kyle Bradish. I mean, this rotation is just whatever they can get out there on the mound. I don't trust it. I don't love this bullpen either. Remember, they really sold their bullpen late last season. I don't trust the pitching enough. I know I don't really trust the Red Sox pitching enough either, but I trust that lineup a little bit more because they have a lot of veterans who have been doing it. And playing in Boston, it always feels like you're going to get a couple more wins than you expect. So, again, very, very close, but I'm got the Red Sox and then the Orioles.
See, and I don't trust either the pitching and those teams to be on the field, to be able to eat innings, to be able to do what you need to do, that you want your pitchers to do. But I completely disagree with you there, where I trust the Orioles bats a heck of a lot more because of their lack of age, because these are young guys that are coming into the league and almost already taking it by storm. I think that they have a couple of guys that could be teetering toward rookie of the year. And I don't see that in the Red Sox. And you're saying that guys are getting ready to leave the Orioles. Guys are lining up to leave the Red Sox. There's no desire to be on that team unless you're coming from Japan and getting paid. And that's great. I don't think it's going to last for too long. I think that they're going to end up trading some guys away from Red Sox and go into full-on sell mode. But Orioles, no, they laid the groundwork. They were better than we thought they were going to be this last year. And I don't think that they're going to make the playoffs by any means, but they are getting better with time, whereas the Red Sox are not. And I think both teams are going to take a step in that subsequential direction.
All right, so AL East, We both have Blue Jays win the division. Then I've got Rays in second, getting that last wild card, followed by Yankees, Red Sox, Orioles. You have Blue Jays, and then the Yankees getting that last wild card, followed by Rays, Orioles, Red Sox. So that rounds out our American League predictions. So we're going to take our final break. When we come back, we're going to give out our awards or our award predictions, followed by our American League and National League Championship Series, and then who we have winning the World Series this year. We wrap it all up next year on the Kingsmen Sports Podcast.
There are many ways for businesses to expand their customer base, but one of the tried and true ways of increasing customer loyalty and recognizing employees is to put your name and logo on promotional and motivational items. You can find a wide selection at Alderson's Awards West Printwares in Centralia. Shirts, hats, coats, mugs, pens, and more, all with high-quality screen printing or embroidery done on site. For a full catalog of items at great prices, go to aldersons.net, and remember, you will get maximum impact at Awards West Printwares.
Welcome back to the Kingsmen Sports Podcast. It's time to wrap this one up with our award predictions and our World Series predictions here for the 2023 MLB season. We're going to start with the Rookie of the Year for both the American and National League. I'm going to start with the AL Rookie of the Year, Hunter Brown of the Astros. Came on in the playoffs last season out of the bullpen. He's going to get a lot more run time in the rotation. Just wicked heat, wipeout stuff. I really like what I saw from him, so I think Hunter Brown takes home AL Rookie of the Year.
No, I was just talking about this exciting young player, Gunnar Henderson from Baltimore. I saw little glimpses last year when he came playing at the end of the season, and I think he's just going to build on that, and he's looking good. He's looking like exactly a dream shortstop for a team coming up. So I think they're going to be able to build around him, and he's going to really take the league by storm.
NL Rookie of the Year, I'm going to go Corbin Carroll of the Arizona Diamondbacks. He's kind of the favorite. This is where I went a little bit less bold, really looked good at the end of the year. You talked about Gunnar Henderson. Carroll looked really solid with the Diamondbacks last year. I don't think he really strikes those fear into the pitchers that they're going to try to avoid him, which is going to give him plenty of at-bats. Going to be that run producer for the Diamondbacks. I really like what I saw from Corbin Carroll, and I think he takes home that hardware.
So, yeah, I thought about that for a long time. I'm going to give it to Miguel Vargas. Talk about coming into the league with no pressure on you, getting as many at-bats as you are comfortable with, and just being able to thrive in a team that is just spoiled already. And then your presence is not a make or break like it is for the Diamondbacks. So I'm thinking Miguel is going to take it home just out of simplistic ease that he has. I see him getting a lot more opportunities and being able to take advantage of it more often.
Simplistic ease will get him the Rookie of the Year. Let's go to Manager of the Year. AL Manager of the Year, I'm going to go Pedro Grifol. New manager for the White Sox. We talked about La Russa being a big-time issue. He comes in, and Grifol, he connects with these Latin players a little bit better than a lot better than La Russa ever did. So I think Grifol is going to really light a spark under this team. If they get to the playoffs, if they win the division like I'm predicting them to, he's got to be the Manager of the Year, because that is the kind of main difference from last year's team to this year's team is at the helm.
See, and I've got a very similar thought process. I kind of already said it, but John Schneider with the Blue Jays, you fire Montoyo. There were problems that the rest of the baseball world was not seeing there in Toronto. And John Schneider comes in and wins 18 games at the end of the year for him. It's already laying the groundwork for what he can do with that team. I think it continues. And I think, again, because it's the missing factor from last year, you got to give it to him. Same reasons you're wanting to give it to White Sox if it works out for him.
NL, I'm going a little bit bold. This is where you're going to see me really start buying into the Cubs. David Ross, I have winning the NL Manager of the Year. I have him getting this team to the playoffs, obviously. working that rotation a little bit. Everyone loves David Ross. I mean, he was part of that he was part of that Cubs team that snapped that curse, won the World Series. He's already beloved there. They're going to give him all the time he needs to try and turn this team around, make this team a winner. With this lineup, I just think making that jump from rebuild to playoffs in the next year, I think is going to be enough. We see it all the time with managers. That's kind of all it takes to win Manager of the Year. I think David Ross takes this one home.
See, and I went a lot less bold here. I like what you did there. I had the Cubs getting that wild card. That'd be great. I feel like I could share credit if that happened, but but no, I'm going Bob Melvin. Just the team that they've assembled, he is going to need to do some work to patch things together and make this team perform at their best. I think he has the ability to do so. Like you said, they're really close to not being that little brother anymore. And the fact that they've lived in that shadow for so long, if they go deep enough into the playoffs, I think it's going to be kind of a no-brainer.
Let's go to the Cy Young. This is where I brought it out my Mariner bias. AL Cy Young, I've got Luis Castillo. We saw what he could do when he came over from the Reds late last season. This dude is filthy, and he just keeps getting better and better. He's still very young. He's going to be more comfortable pitching in this ballpark now. He's got better defense than he had last season. He had a couple of hiccups against Oakland of all teams last year, but man, he looked good against Toronto in the playoffs. He looked good against Houston in the playoffs. He knows how to pitch on the big stage. I think this is a year for him to really take over and solidify. Hey, everyone was talking about me as a trade piece before. Now you're going to start talking about me as a Cy Young Award winner.
I like it. I would consider us all winners if it happened. I'm actually going with one of your dark horse teams here, Dylan Cease. This kid, he's got 220 some strikeouts every complete year. People cannot figure this kid out. If he gets the wins that he needs, if his team can perform behind him like he needs, and Justin Verlander isn't in his way, he's going home with a Cy Young.
All right. Now the NL Cy Young. This is probably the hottest take either of us have come up with for this episode. Mine is not one that even crosses the minds of most people. I'm going Marcus Stroman for the Cubs. I think the Stro Show is going to be back. We've seen that he can be an elite pitcher with his time in Toronto. Just needs to stay healthy. Hasn't dealt with like a massive injury bug that you're like, he's not staying healthy. There's just no way. If he's out there, he's going to eat innings. He's got a lot better defense behind him now. It's just with Dansby Swanson at shortstop. I like this defense. I like this team. I like Marcus Stroman to have a big year, and especially you're not facing those scary lineups in the NL Central nearly as much. I know you're going to have to face teams like the Mets and the Phillies, Dodgers, Padres, but man, he is going to be able to take advantage. He pitches best when the lights are the brightest. We've seen it time and time again. Helped the U.S. win the WBC in 2017. I think this is his big coming out year. I think Marcus Stroman takes on the Cy Young and surprises everyone.
Okay. You should put $10 on that. You might be 100,000 there. No, I'm going Maximus. Max Fried. There's no question his talent on a team that's going to be teetering just south of 100 wins. He's going to get 20 of them. There's no question about it. That is a very, very talented team behind him. He's not going to get a lot of losses this year. I'm going a little. I guess it's kind of a hot take. I didn't look at the odds. I don't think he's top 5, but he might be. Yours is
he's
a lot.
There. He's close.
Yours is a lot more diamond in the rough. Mine's diamond in the diamond mine. So
there's a pit of diamonds.
Yes.
All right, let's go to the big one, the MVPs. Okay, this one, I am not going bold at all. I put all my boldness on that last one, so I just get a layup now. I'm taking Shohei Ohtani. I mean, if this guy does what he does, he should win MVP every single year. Just elite. And again, I think the Angels make the playoffs. I think that's going to put him over the top. Congratulations, Shohei Ohtani. No surprise here, MVP.
See, and not so wise man once said MVP shouldn't go to non-playoff teams. So I'm not going to put Shohei Ohtani.
I got the Angels in the playoffs.
I know. So double dunk for you. But no, I'm going Julio. There's no question in my mind. He had such a slow start to last year. He's going to come out guns blazing to be a sophomore and be flirting with 35, 40 club. It is going to be ridiculous. It's going to be fun to watch. I cannot say enough. He should be the face of the game. I don't know why you would have, not going to mention it. I'm not salty about it, but he should be on every cover.
He's not the face of the game anymore.
Yeah.
I'm going to let you know that.
He should be on every baseball magazine cover. He should be on every baseball game cover. He is the heart of young MLB growing up. He's going to get a couple of these awards by the time he's done, and sophomore year is going to be his first one.
NL MVP, we both agreed on. Another young phenom, a stud. We're going Ronald Acuna Jr. Bounced back from that knee injury, looked really, really good last year, especially towards the end of the year. I think this is a trendy pick right now, and I'm going to buy into it because this guy just does it all. Defense is incredible. That bat, so much power. He plays with the swagger that not a lot of guys really have. Plays with this confidence, and he's not going to apologize for it. I love watching him play. One of my favorite players, Ronald Acuna Jr., I think takes home the MVP. And I was going all in on Manny Machado before he signed that deal. If it would have been contract year, I would have picked Machado. He signs the deal, so give me Acuna.
Now, Braves are taking home hardware. I'm telling you that is a very star-studded team, and it's built around Acuna. Fun to watch in the WBC, fun to watch in postseason ball. He's going to be on your TVs a lot this year.
So we both have Acuna. You were talking about hardware. Do the Braves take home the hardware? Let's talk about it. First, the American League side of things, the ALCS. We both have the same teams. We have a rematch of a wild card series from last year. Mariners, Blue Jays. Both of us have in the ALCS. We have different winners. I'm going to take the Blue Jays this time. I think the Mariners are really close, but I think Toronto gets one back. I think the Blue Jays feel like they're being a little bit disrespected, laughed at after that whole last season was the trailer. Now it's showtime. They get bounced 2 games into the postseason. I think they're going to come in with a chip on their shoulder, and I think the Blue Jays knock off the Mariners. Very tight series in 7.
No, Mariners are making the World Series this year. It's time. They are the last team to see that series, and I have them beating the Blue Jays. They just have had the Blue Jays' number when it counts, and it could be. You line up that rotation in the postseason, and I would give advantage to Mariners.
Over in the National League, last year my dark horse team was the Phillies, but I didn't ride them to the NLCS or the World Series last year. This year my dark horse team is the Cubs, so do I get that bold? No, I'm not getting that bold. I've got the Braves and the Padres, and I've got the Braves winning that series. I think Atlanta laid an egg in the postseason last year, straight up laid an egg when they should have been that team going to the World Series. The Padres did the exact opposite. They got hot, just ran into a team that got a little bit hotter in Philadelphia in the NLCS. I don't think the Padres are quite there yet. I think the rotation, big edge to Atlanta in this series. I think the Braves win in 6.
See, and I actually have the Braves getting more wins than anyone in the National League, and I don't have them even making the championship series. I have Padres beating the Dodgers in the NLCS. Padres are going to get some reinforcements later on in the year, both from people coming back from injuries and because they have the pocketbook and the desire to make trades happen. They're going to be getting some studded guys coming into their roster. And so I think they're going to go deeper in the playoffs than their win-loss record would indicate. And I think that's when they take over Big Brother again for the second year in a row.
All right. So if that happens, are you officially done calling the Padres little brother and the Dodgers big brother? Is it a little bit more even then? Are you going to start to keep on riding that one?
I mean, I have to see what the off season next year has in store. Right now,
bouncing
talent,
a team from the playoffs 2 years in a row. That's got to count for something.
Talent-wise, Padres are still little brother to Dodgers. At the end of the year, I don't know, but
I don't know about that one. All right, let's move on to the World Series. I have the Blue Jays and the Braves. You have Mariners, Padres, which sign me up for that one right now if that's what it takes. I'll start with mine.
They keep telling us that we're rivals, so that would be.
So Atlanta just won the World Series a couple years ago. Toronto finally getting back to it for the first time since the 90s. So I had the White Sox over the Dodgers last year. You had the Mets over the Blue Jays.
Yep.
I'm going to take your loser from last year, and I'm going to give them the title this year. I got Blue Jays beating the Braves in the World Series. I love this lineup that Toronto has. And if you get into a playoff game, I know the Mariners swept them in the Rogers Center. That place is not easy to play in as a road team. That is very, very tough. We've seen the Braves. Their home field advantage isn't necessarily as big for them. I'm going to take Toronto to get the job done, and the Blue Jays get the World Series title they have been looking for so long.
I don't have any repeat people. These teams haven't been to World Series in, well, one of them ever. I don't think the Mariners. I don't think the Mariners bring home the ring quite yet. I've got Padres over Mariners, and that is just coming out swinging. Both teams, every time they play each other, it seems like somebody's scoring double digits. It's fun to watch. I think that with the moves the Padres made this offseason, that lineup is just terrifying. I don't think the Mariners are quite at that caliber yet, 1-9. So I'll give it to the Padres. We'll see how 2023 plays out.
You had me, and then you lost me at the end. So
if it gets to Padres versus Mariners in October, I don't know. Maybe we'll say something different at that time. But how the teams are sitting right now, I see Padres being the top team this year.
You know what? I'm not going to go there. I'm not going to go there yet. We'll do it for this episode of the Kingsmen Sports Podcast. Baseball is here. This one will probably be coming out a day or two before opening day, hopefully, and you'll be able to see. Buckle up. Exciting year of baseball coming your way. Thank you so much, Jacob, for hopping on. That is going to do it for this edition of the Kingsmen Sports Podcast. We will be back in a couple of weeks to recap the WBC. It'll be a little bit later, but we will dig into that, talk about what we saw, what we loved, talk about the event as a whole, what we think of it. We also will have Mount Rushmore as well coming up, and there's a little thing called March Madness going on right now. We'll recap that one, my bracket. That's how I'll say it. But thank you so much. We will see you in a couple of weeks.
I haven't gotten a single one wrong yet on my bracket yet. So
national champ lost game 1, so that's how mine went. We'll see you in a couple of weeks here on the Kingsmen Sports Podcast.